Space programs want you to see heroes floating in zero gravity. They don't want you to know about the astronauts who burned alive in capsules, suffocated in training chambers, or fell back to Earth in flaming wreckage, while grieving families were told comfortable lies. The Soviets erased entire cosmonauts from official photographs. NASA ignored engineers who predicted disaster. 15 deaths were covered up, classified, or conveniently forgotten. These aren't rumors. They're documented facts that took decades to surface. Subscribe to keep watching videos like this. Number 1 is the cosmonaut who officially never existed until investigators found his charred remains. Valentin Bondarenko was 24 years old when he burned to death in a pressure chamber in 1961. The Soviet space program erased him completely. His face was airbrushed from group photographs. His name disappeared from official records. For decades, the world had no idea he ever existed. Here's what happened. During an endurance test, Bondarenko removed medical sensors from his skin and wiped the adhesive off with an alcohol-soaked cotton ball. He tossed it aside. It landed on a hot plate. In the pure oxygen environment of the chamber, flames exploded instantly. He died 16 hours later from burns covering his entire body. The Soviets buried the story because admitting failure meant losing the space race. Number 2. Just 6 years later, NASA made the exact same mistake. Apollo 1 astronauts Gus Grissom, Ed White, and Roger Chaffee were conducting a launch rehearsal on January 27, 1967. The cabin was filled with pure oxygen. A spark ignited somewhere in the miles of wiring. The fire spread so fast that all 3 men were dead within 30 seconds. Here's the part most people don't know. Engineers had warned NASA repeatedly about the fire risk. They begged for design changes. Management overruled them. The hatch opened inward, making escape impossible once pressure built up inside. NASA knew about these problems and launched anyway. Number 3. The Soviets lost another cosmonaut they tried to hide. In 1967, Vladimir Komarov launched aboard Soyuz 1 knowing the spacecraft was fatally flawed. Engineers had identified 203 structural problems before launch. Komarov reportedly told friends he expected to die. He went anyway because refusing meant his backup pilot, Yuri Gagarin, would take his place. The parachute system failed during re-entry. Komarov plummeted to Earth and hit the ground at terminal velocity. American listening stations recorded his final transmission. He was screaming and cursing Soviet leadership as he fell. His remains fit in a small open casket. Number 4. Did you know NASA has audio recordings of astronauts dying? The Challenger disaster on January 28, 1986, killed 7 crew members, including teacher Krista McAuliffe. The world watched the shuttle break apart 73 seconds after launch. NASA initially claimed the crew died instantly. That was a lie. Investigators later found evidence that at least some astronauts survived the initial breakup. Emergency oxygen packs had been manually activated. The crew cabin remained intact during the 2-minute fall to the ocean. They were conscious, falling, and completely helpless. Number 5. Engineers tried to stop that launch. The night before Challenger launched, engineers at Morton Thiokol begged NASA to delay. The O-ring seals weren't designed for cold weather. Temperatures that morning dropped to 36 degrees. Engineer Roger Beaujolais presented data showing the seals would fail. NASA managers asked Thiokol to reconsider their recommendation. Under pressure, Thiokol executives overruled their own engineers and approved the launch. Beaujolais watched the explosion from his office. He spent the rest of his career as a whistleblower, warning about organizational failures that prioritize schedules over safety. Number 6. Columbia's destruction in 2003 followed the same pattern. During launch, a piece of foam insulation struck the shuttle's wing. Engineers requested satellite imagery to assess the damage. NASA managers denied the request. They decided the foam strike wasn't a safety concern. On February 1, 2003, Columbia broke apart during re-entry. All 7 astronauts died. Here's what makes it worse. Emails recovered after the disaster showed engineers had been raising alarms for days. Management dismissed their concerns as unnecessary worry. The investigation found NASA had learned nothing from Challenger. Number 7. Soviet cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin, the first human in space, died under mysterious circumstances in 1968. His training jet crashed near Moscow. The official explanation changed multiple times. First it was pilot error, then weather, then another aircraft flew too close. For decades, conspiracy theories suggested he was murdered for criticizing the space program. Declassified documents in 2013 revealed a more mundane but equally damning truth. Air traffic controllers made critical errors, and the investigation was covered up to protect military reputations. Number 8. 3 Soviet cosmonauts died in 1971 when their Soyuz 11 capsule depressurized during re-entry. Georgy Dobrovolsky, Vladislav Volkov, and Viktor Patsayev had just completed a successful 23-day mission aboard the Salyut space station. A valve opened accidentally at high altitude. The cabin lost pressure in seconds. When recovery teams opened the hatch, they found 3 men still strapped in their seats. They looked peaceful, like they were sleeping. Autopsies revealed they suffocated within 40 seconds. The Soviet government initially claimed equipment malfunction. Internal documents later showed design flaws had been identified before launch. Number 9. China's space program has its own secrets. In 2003, Yang Liwei became the first Chinese astronaut in space. What happened to the others who trained alongside him? Reports suggest multiple fatalities during China's early rocket tests, but the government has never officially confirmed any astronaut deaths. Western intelligence agencies estimate that dozens of technicians and potentially astronauts died in launch pad explosions throughout the 1990s. China treats these incidents as state secrets. The families receive compensation and sign strict non-disclosure agreements. No names are released, no public memorials, no official acknowledgement that anyone died at all. Number 10. The space race had an American death nobody talks about. Michael Adams was a test pilot for the X-15 rocket plane program. On November 15, 1967, his aircraft entered a hypersonic spin at the edge of space. Adams experienced forces of 15 Gs as the plane broke apart. His remains were scattered across 50 square miles of California desert. The Air Force classified details of the accident for years. Adams wasn't officially recognized as an astronaut until 2004, nearly 4 decades after his death. His name was finally added to the astronaut memorial. Number 11. Think about what happens to families when someone dies in space. After the Columbia disaster, NASA told the astronauts' families that the crew died instantly. Years later, the final report revealed something different. Some crew members were likely conscious during the initial breakup. At least one helmet visor showed signs of being manually raised. The agency chose comforting lies over difficult truth. This pattern repeated across every major disaster. Families were told what officials thought they needed to hear, not what actually happened. Number 12. The Soviets erased entire cosmonauts from existence. Official photographs were doctored to remove people who failed training or died in accidents. Historians have identified at least 5 cosmonauts who were systematically deleted from official state records before Glasnost opened the archives. Their names surfaced only after the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991. Some died in training accidents, others failed medical screenings and were quietly removed from the program entirely. The state decided their stories weren't worth telling. For decades, their families couldn't even publicly mourn them or visit marked graves. Number 13. NASA's safety culture problems continue today. In 2014, an internal survey found that 20% of NASA employees were afraid to report safety concerns to their supervisors. They worried about retaliation and career damage. The same organizational dysfunction that killed 17 astronauts across 3 major disasters still exists within the agency. Engineers who speak up get labeled as troublemakers. Managers who stay on schedule get promoted. The lesson from Challenger and Columbia was clear. NASA keeps learning it and forgetting it again within a decade. Number 14. Here's the part that should disturb you most. None of the managers who ignored warnings ever faced criminal charges. No one went to prison for the deaths of the Challenger or Columbia crews. Roger Boegely, the engineer who tried desperately to stop the Challenger launch, was pushed out of his career. The executives who overruled him kept their jobs and their pensions. The system protected itself. Astronauts died. Paperwork was filed. Business continued as normal. Number 15. The next disaster is probably already in the making. SpaceX, Boeing, and other private companies now carry humans to space with increasing frequency. Oversight is thinner than ever. Profit motives are stronger than safety concerns. When something goes wrong, will we learn about it? Or will another generation of families be told convenient lies while internal emails get buried in legal proceedings? History suggests we already know the answer. These aren't conspiracy theories. They're documented facts from declassified files, congressional investigations, and whistleblower testimony. 15 astronauts whose deaths someone tried desperately to hide from public view. Governments and agencies that valued reputation over truth. Engineers silenced for speaking up. Families deceived to protect institutions. Next time you watch a rocket launch and hear the announcer talk about brave explorers, remember what you learned today. Some of those explorers never came home, and someone decided you weren't supposed to know the truth. Like if you learned something. Share if you were shocked. Subscribe if you want more dirty truth they tried to bury.